We can do hard things. If you're afraid to start and never start, you're going to be exactly where you are and you're going to stay exactly the same. Why do you want to change? And is this the pathway to do that? You don't know until you try. When I have clients who are new to anything, well, how can we gamify it? How far can you go today before stopping? Can you go a little bit further tomorrow? And then if you have a certain distance, like gamify it. Oh, I'm a quarter of the way there. I only got 3 of these left. I'm halfway there. I only got 2 of these left. And then you make it fun. It's hard. It's going to be hard. But if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it and everybody would be fit. And then I probably wouldn't be here talking to you guys.
You are in the flush.
Yep, I'm doing the flush right now.
You're in it. You're in it right now. What is the flush?
So the flush is a protocol, nutritional protocol, movement protocol, mindset protocol to help lower inflammation, chemical inflammation, inflammation through food, physical inflammation. You know, we take on inflammation in so many different ways. And what this is a minimum of 14 days of me eating more carbohydrates, fresh fruits, vegetables, low glycemic carbohydrates, having less protein, which is not normal for me or anything that I've ever prescribed before, and training less and working on doing less for 14 days so my body can heal from the inside out. Because if you think about it this way, our body can take on so much stress. And if you have this bucket that we put stress into from all the chaos and the pain and the training and the shitty foods that we eat, our body can only take so much of it. And physically, when we have more stress in the body, cortisol will rise. And if cortisol is higher in the body, we're unable to actually burn fat and build muscle the way our body would like to. So it's like a fire alarm is going off. If we were sitting here talking, the fire alarm went off, we'd got to stop the podcast, run outside, and come back to do it later. So if we can lower that cortisol and make sure that there is no actual fire, our body is able to actually see more optimal progress at a sustained rate over time. So this is a phase of training to set me up for success long term.
And so we actually talked about the flush before you started it. This was, I don't know if you remember, but we were at the CrossFit gym and I was talking about what I was going through, like with I was in between races and I really didn't know, like, I was just feeling beat the fuck up and I had no real way of like kind of getting away from that. And you you talked to me about it then. You talked to me about like reduce your training, walk a lot more, eat a little bit more, all these different things. And I really didn't implement them until September. I stopped running. I stopped really heavy lifting. And for about 2 weeks, I walked around 15,000 steps a day, roughly, like about 15-ish thousand. And I was mind blown because my body, being an endurance athlete, is always in that state of like kind of fire alarm. Like if I had a really hard workout, like I'm inflamed, my body is kind of like, it's not the same stimulus as like drinking or whatever. Like,
well, it's very similar. I mean, stimulus, no, but effect on the body, yes.
Super similar.
Right? So like you go into flight or flight. And if you stay in that state for so long, your body's not able to react, and your senses change, the way you smell and taste, and your cognitive function changes, and you can't be on. And I know it's hard for someone like yourself to like take a step back.
Super hard,
right? And you're like, oh, this is all I know, and like this is what got me here. I feel really good doing this, but like I'm really tired all the time. We gotta realize that these are momentary changes so you can get back to that place but better and elevated. So I mean, I would love to know how that went for you.
Yeah, so it happened. I really, me and Ryan started building up our running volume following that. And the only reason I was really able to and feel okay is because I spent all the time on the feet with walking. So I was walking way more, which honestly, how my training before that was going, because I was just in between races, so I wasn't heavy endurance. I was heavy into like heavy lifting, strength training, all this type of stuff. It was like walking loosened me up, so I was way looser. I just felt better, and I felt like my body mechanics were more on point, and I was like felt like I could take on strain better. And then when I eased back into it, because I took the step back, I wasn't an idiot. And I wasn't like, I think what happens if you're used to such an intense training protocol, no matter where you go, whether it's CrossFit, endurance, bodybuilding, you jump because your body's so used to it to the most heightened, most straining way of performing that activity as possible because that's what you're used to. I took a whole different approach leading up into this prep, and we have a half marathon in 2 weeks and then a half marathon a month after that. And I've actually never felt more physically, and like my volume's back up, but I've never felt more physically prepped to go into a strain like that because I took the time to like take a step back. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, weird, right? Like you segmented your season and you have a race coming up and you didn't just kill yourself the whole time leading up to it. Wild how it works. Um, I mean, I told this story the other day. I was young. I just lost a lot of weight. I was very much so like in the gym every single day, no matter what. I was working in a retail space at a mall. I was living on beef jerky and Red Bull, like super lean.
Yeah.
Don't do this. Don't do what I do. But someone from loss prevention department came in, and he was, probably a couple years older than I am right now, so late 30s, early 40s, and he was just massive, like huge arms, really big build. I mean, he was just a tall human being altogether. And I was like, man, like, what do you do? What do you do for your workout? And he was like, I work out 3 days a week. And I was like, you're lying. Bullshit. He was like, no, man, like I work out 3 days a week and I walk the rest of the time. I go in there and I lift heavy the way I want to lift, and then I let my body recover. And I didn't understand it at the time as like an idiot 23, 24. No, I was like 24, 25 at the time. Looking back, now that I'm there, it's like, wow, I don't have to kill myself every day. But like when I do train, or if I get the chance to train, then I give my all to that training. And then if I can't do it, it's not the end of the world. So like I can lead up to these things so I feel better for longevity versus like I need to get this workout in because this is the workout that's going to get me to, X, Y, or Z.
It's a micro, or it's a macro idea that if applied in, this is a micro example of a macro idea, because what you're saying is, you have to give your body rest. You have to treat your body right. And I've had a lot of conversations recently with very successful people, and they all talk about the same shit. Take care of your body. And it looks very different to everybody. And I think what I recognized about being around you and just kind of like immersing myself in this world that you have at Hidden Summit, it's, it looks different for everybody.
Yep.
And like so many people are focused on like, I want to be a runner, or I want to be a CrossFit person, or I want to, whatever that thing is. And because there's a societal, pressure or norm or whatever of like, I want to go be that person, you forget about like what actually fires you up in fitness.
Sorry to cut you off, but like, do you want to be a runner or do you enjoy running?
I enjoy running.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's a much different lifestyle than being a professional runner. Do you enjoy CrossFit or do you want to compete? That's a big spectrum. And this is where I did a lot of my fitness for a long time. A lot of people go to the CrossFit gym and they act like they're competing, but they don't understand the basics.
Mm-hmm.
So people ask like, well, how did you get so good at it? I was like, well, I strength trained for years before I stepped in a CrossFit gym. So my body was able to do these things, and that stays with me as I get older, and especially now that I'm not in a competing season of my life anymore. I understand that, well, like body strength and gymnastics, body strength and basic hypertrophy and strength training, and then let me get my heart rate up a few times a week in Metcon and do couplets and triplets and like practice my skills.
Mm-hmm.
That's balance. CrossFit is, and for me, it's like CrossFit is a way to balance all of these modalities and not just let me kick my own ass every single day, which is how it started, and that's why it has a bad reputation. Yeah. But same thing for running too. Same. Like I know more people that get injured running than they do getting injured in CrossFit.
And it's funny because what I talked to when I got Ryan, like I really started to push Ryan when he started working with us. Like I really wanted to start running, and like our first runs, I didn't try to kick his ass. Like I wasn't like, hey, I'm trying to go in and like really murder him every single session, because that wasn't going to get him anywhere. It was a 3 mile here. It was a 3 mile there. Maybe we go out and test 6 miles. But like the reason why people are so There's a lot of ego in running because of the pace aspect of it. Same thing with numbers in the gym. Like, what's your back squat? What's your bench? There's ego in being like, I I only want to run sub 9 minute miles, and it's like, well, maybe your body actually really needs to go out to stay in the right heart rate. Maybe it needs to be a 12-minute pace, and maybe you need to be all right
All
with
right.
that.
Well, two things here. Like
Yeah,
one, your pace or your time in running is compared to your pace and your time in running and nobody else's. It's like swimming. You're racing the clock based on what you did the last time when you did that same race. Period.
Yep.
If you compare yourself to somebody else, ask yourself, are all of the other variables in my life the same as theirs to compare it
yeah,
at a general fitness level? And number two, when it comes to running specifically, I was literally just talking to someone on a client call the other day who has a half marathon coming up. And I was like, well, let me help you with your training. I've done a couple half marathons. I'd love to see what your training looks like. And we can, triage and see what is most important for you to work on. And there's two important things in running, in my mind, for the general fitness goer. If you want to improve your time, being able to work on your aerobic capacity. So can you hold 75% longer and longer and longer when you're running distances?
hmm
And can you go slow? And that was one of the hardest things for me to conquer. But that's how I went from a 640 mile to a 530 mile in a couple of cycles, is because I did the zone 2 low, slow training where I had to keep my heart rate at 120 for an hour, which is way harder than running intervals
yep,
in my mind.
100%. It's a monotony. Ryan, I'm actually interested to ask you because I think it's applicable to Cavan's audience in particular. You started running. Like, what were you doing previously? Like, what got you into it? And then why do you believe that you've been consistent these first couple of months?
I'm glad you asked. So I was always just like a gym junkie, like go to the gym 5 days a week, lift for an hour, hit every muscle, get out. Never wanted to be there too long. Barely did abs. Kind of went through the motions. There was no end goal. It was stay healthy. What got me into running, not only you, but it was I wanted to cut down. I noticed my weight was getting up. I was eating a lot, and I wanted to find a counter to it. And when you opened me up to running, I was like, it's so simple. Just put your shoes on and run outside. Like, I don't have to drive to the gym. I can come home sweaty and just jump in the shower. Like, I think it was the convenience of it.
Mm.
Running was so easy to just throw on shoes and go. There was no way to have an excuse.
Yeah,
in
what
my
would you
life.
what would you say to somebody who just says like, I'm just scared to run, like I don't want to, it's too hard or it hurts? Like I mean, like, because going from not doing it to doing it, I'm sure it was not easy. But I mean, what would advice would you give as someone who's just getting into this?
I think it's, well, don't knock it till you try it and learn about running like zone two because I came in with the impression of I can't run a mile in X amount of time. I'm going to gas myself out. I can't do that. And Jamie introduced me to just slow down. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm 45 minutes, an hour in, and I can breathe. Like that was my hardest thing, I think, was the breathing, like staying in control, um, and just
But
getting started. Like it was really just about getting started. I started off with shitty shoes too. My shoes were flat, they were like skateboard shoes. And I'm running, I feel like I'm barefoot on concrete. It was so uncomfortable. It was a lot of mind over, fitness, like just pushing to keep up with Jamie. And that's another thing, not to get off track, but having a partner to hold you accountable in running is huge. If you're
huge.
by yourself, it's so easy to give up. And it's like you're in your mind like no one saw that.
Yeah,
And
I like to gamify it too,
Mm.
right? So when I have clients who are new to anything, especially something like running, well, how can we gamify it? How far can you go today before stopping? Can you go a little bit further tomorrow? Or how long can you go? Can you go a little bit longer tomorrow? And then if you have a certain distance, like gamify it. Oh, I'm a quarter of the way there. I only got 3 of these left. I'm
hmm
halfway there. I only got 2 of these left. And then you make it fun. It's hard. It's going to be hard. Like, but if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it and everybody would be fit. And then I probably wouldn't be here talking to you guys about this. We talk about something else. But the truth is like we can do hard things. And I posted this earlier as well. If you're afraid to start and never start, you're going to be exactly where you are and you're going to stay exactly the same. So like, why do you want to change? And is this the pathway to do that? You don't know until you try. So we might as well give it a very first step if we're going on something like a run. Shoes, big deal. Also,
Big deal.
It's funny. The New York City Marathon happened a couple weeks ago, and I'm scrolling through Instagram, and my brothers run it, my uncles run it, my cousins run it, and this one guy did the whole thing barefoot. Yeah, because barefoot running is a big deal. It's a huge thing. It's strength. It's great for the feet. I don't recommend doing it if you haven't run before, and you start really slow. You start on a treadmill, so your feet are safe. But he ran the whole thing with no shoes on.
That's ridiculous.
Too.
I wanted to.
Yeah, New York City concrete. You got to watch out for a lot of shit.
Yeah, that's actually. I hope he got deep cleaned after that. Another thing that I was thinking about in terms of when you start any fitness journey, but specifically right now we're talking about running, I think you have to have like a misogi. I think you have to have an event that, at least in my mind, this is what's worked for me. Having something on the calendar once you get those first wins to like put yourself to a test in some regard. And I want to get your opinion on this, but for instance, with Ryan, we've been running consistently for about 3 months?
3 months, yeah.
And we gamified it each week. It's like, okay, let's maintain 10 miles a week. You're crushing 10 miles a week. Let's see if you can do 7 miles. Oh, you crushed 7 miles. Cool. Now you can go. And then eventually I just the other day, I was like, let's do this marathon on December 2nd, or this half marathon on December 2nd. I was like, let's go test it out. Let's go try. At the end of the day, worst thing that happens is if you walk it and you stay in zone 2, you're like doing whatever, but it's just something you haven't tried. I wouldn't recommend being as early as he is, and like I'm just kind of like whatever. Yeah. It's our friend dynamic, but I wanted to get your opinion on the whole idea of a misogi or something, an event that you look forward to in order to get yourself in the right physical, mental conditioning.
I think it's twofold, right? I think having a goal is really important. So if you're working towards something, the likelihood of achievement, it keeps you on that direct path without being distracted, or even if you set back, you still know where you got to go. Same thing with me with this flush. I'm doing a 20-mile ruck on Saturday, and I feel that if I didn't hold myself accountable to this, I wouldn't be as focused on the ruck. They're two different things, but to me, I connected them, I gamified it again, and I put myself in a position to win. And this goes into anything. Like if you have, I had a client the other day who was like, oh, I'm pushing off taking this test. And I was like, before you get on a call with me next week, I need you to send me the date where you schedule that test. Otherwise, we're not going to talk until you do. Because you're not studying for it. You're not going to take it. But if you put it on the calendar, the likelihood of you studying for it is not going to happen. So it doesn't have to be strictly towards fitness. But at the end of the day, it's like, why did you sign up for it? Like really, like sit and ask yourself and then just fucking do it. Mm-hmm. But we don't do it because of fear and the unknown, right? Fear and excitement are two sides of the same coin. When we're excited about something, this race for you, you've done it before. You're like, all right, let's crush it. Maybe you are a little bit less excited because you're like, I don't know. I'm a little bit fearful. Okay. But once you do it, odds are I'll text you after. You'll be like, I'm going to do another one. Like, because you understand what it's like and you've experienced it. It's the same thing with anything. So if you're afraid, ask why. What don't you know? We live in a day and age where we can find out anything. Some of it we can get instantly. Some of it takes experience and practice and repetition. Mm-hmm. Whichever path that goes down, once you have more knowledge and information, you'll be more ready and prepared for the next time. Less fearful, more excited.
Yeah, and I think it's with, we're just talking running topically for at least me and Ryan's situation, but it's like it's so easy to get off the path when you don't have something on the calendar for yourself and you don't have like a marker, like a line, because the studying aspect is so true. It's like, if I know eventually I'm going to take a test, I'm not thinking about prioritizing studying. But when we put a half marathon that's in 2 weeks, you better believe I'm hitting every single workout. I'm staying on top of my recovery. I'm staying on top. Well, it's because I've been there before. And guess what? I know what it feels like when you don't train properly for a half marathon. And It's like, you don't want that. And then the fear for Ryan, it's like, he's fearful to go into that race and be underprepared, as anybody would be.
Yeah. And I think the same thing in business too, right? We can call these deadlines. Okay. You're setting yourself up with a deadline. I had one of my director of coaching. She had an assignment due. She's like, oh, I think I'll have it done by Friday. I was like, I want it by Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. And she fucking did it by Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. because she knew it was going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And she did what she had to do to make sure that it was done. And now it's ready to go. And I don't have to do it on Friday, and I don't have to review it with her on Friday, and then, wait, through the weekend to go back to it the next day. Whatever time frame you give yourself to do something, you're going to get it done. If your marathon race was in 3 months from now, would you take your training as seriously now?
No.
Probably not. So,
and that's also like everybody that says like you need 3 months of like prep time, like you need to be consistent for some duration of time. If you put yourself under a 3-month gun, you can give yourself a lot of excuses. I'm just being like, you can give yourself a lot of excuses.
We map out every single week of what we're going to do inside the business.
Have to.
You have to. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. And you're like,
No.
what are we working on this week, guys?
I was actually going to ask you that because this is a great transitioning topic. Because it's funny, I'm reading Dan Martell's Buy Back
I
Your Time.
downloaded it. Yeah, I listened to the intro.
Such a good fucking book. Anybody out there that's an aspiring entrepreneur, buy Back Your Time. But it talks about the replacement ladder. And I'm actually interested to get your take on this because you are further along in the business journey. How long have you had Hidden Summit?
We started Hidden Summit in 2019.
Okay, so 2019. So that's reps. You've been under the bar for long enough. But talks about the replacement ladder, and it talks about this constant, from a founder CEO perspective, this constant leveling up of like what you're doing, where you're spending your time. And like it's been hard because I just had this conversation outside with Jace, my co-founder, and we were talking about, I was like, we need to acquire more leads, like any business. Like you need to consistently have inflow, and you need to whatever. And large part of my responsibility is creating lead flow. It's generating interest. It's generating like opportunities, I guess. And I was wondering, I was like, why? It's not that we're stressed for leads. It's like, why haven't we had consistent lead flow come in every single day? And it was because I looked at this ladder, and at first it's admin tasks. It's like staying on top of just simple admin shit that you're like, yeah, calendar needs to be scheduled. Yeah, like we need to be like, inbox needs to be in check. Like things like that, like simple admin tasks. But then delivery is a fucking whole nother beast. And what I recognized is I spend so much time in delivery because I'm such a perfectionist that I'm never thinking that it's like, okay, got to move up, got to level up, got to level up. Like I'm always like, and then I realize it's like I'm not doing the business justice. Like I'm not actually like stretching it. I'm not growing it. And which means like no matter how good your service is, your delivery is, like if you're not spending time growing the business is dying, point blank, period. So I wanted to get your take on that. Like when did you, like what is the balance for you in terms of buying back your time in the business? And like where do you think your highest ROI on your time is right now in your business?
I mean, one, it was giving up clients.
Okay.
When I started the business, I had a client list of over 50, and that grew. And then when we grew, and I had to do more for marketing and, doing the sales calls and creating the systems, we hired coaches, and I gave my clients to the coaches, and that was number one.
How scary was that?
It was terrifying.
Yeah,
because we're working with people, it's not products, right?
Yep.
So it's like relationships are built, trust is built. Some clients are still with us, others left. I knew it was going to happen. However, not because they're bad coaches, just because they're not me. So, I mean, and I had this conversation with somebody yesterday on, in my C3 programming, which is Cavan's coaching collective, is an exclusive small group of people who want to elevate their life more than just health and fitness. So, a lot of them happen to be small business owners. And one of the things I'm doing with them is looking at where they are, and she's stuck. She's like, well, we're doing really well, but I didn't get to see my family this year.
Yep.
And my nephew's a year old, and my sister's pregnant again. And, I haven't really competed or trained a lot. And I was like, it's time to hire. And she's like, well, I'm scared of the financial aspect. And I'm like, okay, you can be scared of the financial aspect, or you can grow your business and move in a direction where you have more of your time.
Yeah.
Because I asked her, I was like, is this hire the person that, if you could choose anybody, would this be that person? And she said, yes. And I was like, well, what would that do for you as well as the business? Because if you're not 100%, how is your business going to be 100%? So, and then it goes into training and making sure that she holds the standard. It will never be her standard, like, because she started the business, but like, is it to the standard of this is what we want for our clients to walk away with feeling like they've got the best of what they can.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I understand this a lot more. It's really helpful. So it's terrifying letting go of it's your baby, right? Like,
Yep.
we started it from nothing. And that was the first thing for me when I walked into a meeting with my mentor, and he was like, you got to get rid of your clients. And I was like, what the fuck? It's like,
Yep.
I was like, because it was so for me now to say it, I'm like, oh yeah, obviously. But back then I was like, what are you talking about? Everything will fall apart. And then, oh yeah, we grew to a 7-figure business in the next year. So it makes sense to do that.
It's so hard. Number one, you talked about taking care of your fucking self. Like, it is so easy in a business to just find shit to do. And there's always fires and everything is always burning. And you're like, especially being in a startup, like we're couple years in, and we're also investing a lot of money back into the business every single month. So every month your ass is on fire because you're not fucking saving. Like, you're investing back into the business.
Yep.
Of course you are. Like, of course you are. You're trying to grow. But there's always shit that you got to do. And there's always things that you could be spending your time on. And there's some people I've talked to recently, and like really successful people, like people that have built 20 plus companies. They say, like, you are not a slave to your business. You did not build your business to do that. And actually, that's how you prevent your business from actually growing, is just giving all your time and energy and your life to it, which you can't take care of your physical, definitely not taking care of your mental, and you're definitely not taking care of the relationships. And when you actually look at it, you zoom out. I am not I'm nowhere close to where I am right now without my girlfriend. I'm nowhere close to where I am right now without Ryan. I'm nowhere close to where I am right now without Jace. I'm nowhere close to with you. Like, all these different relationships in my life. And if I am constantly just giving every second of my being to a business, it's like, yeah, you're probably, the business isn't going to grow, and you're definitely not going to either.
Well, you forgot one relationship, the relationship with you and yourself. That's the most important, right? Like, there will always be a fire to, put out. You're not curing cancer here. You're not sending anybody to the moon tomorrow. And last I checked, you started a business, not a job for yourself.
That's real. That's real.
So when you look at it through that lens, which was something someone said to me, it became really clear that your role changes. And I'm not up to the latter part on the book, but I would imagine it's something along the lines of, as you elevate, there will be new challenges that you'll have to face to make sure that the business moves in the right direction. And that's forward. It's not always going to be up, it's forward. So when you bring on people and you train them, or you create new systems, or you're creating new ways to generate leads, or you're networking more, like, that's who you are.
Yep.
Have you read the book Traction?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I think you and Jace both need to read that book. It'll really help you both separate who does what and how you guys work with one another to continue having the business move in the direction that you want it to move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a good one.
There's a quote by Elon Musk that says, it's something to the attest of, like, as a business owner, you are building the machine that builds the machine. That's your job, to build the machine that builds the machine. And it, like, I'd never thought about it like that, because I always you don't when you think small. And what I've spent a lot of time recently is just talking to people that own 20 plus companies, talking to people that are 4 years into, multi-million-dollar business. Like, talking to those people, you start to realize that, like, if I keep dealing with this same problem, or I keep spending time on this same thing that really, when you audit your time and you look at your time spent, is kind of fucking bullshit. If I keep doing that, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. What would hiring an admin like help you to do right now?
Right now, our admin for the most part is handled. We got to get that off of Jace's plate, because Jace became my admin, which is, again, like, we just had this conversation the other day. Jace is a killer fucking sales guy. Like, one of the best salespeople in all the other functions that he does major things in, because he has a bunch of different ventures that he's a part of. But sales is one of his number one contributing factors. And for some reason in our business, we're like, No, you need to do like more ops and more admin shit. Like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? And it's like, obviously you live and you learn, but we had a conversation today where I go, yeah, like all you do is sales all day. Like you should probably just only do that for our business. You know what I mean? Like that should be one of your main contributing factors. But admin right now, like I know for myself, it's inbox management and it's calendar work. It's staying on top of scheduling. Maybe outbound. Like there's just different things that you could apply to, but like yeah, probably
Well,
those
well,
couple of
well, I think like you're almost like siloing it too much, right?
okay.
So like I don't know if you need your own administrative assistant and he doesn't need his own, but like you just said, if he's better suited to do more in the business and he runs the finances side of things,
Yep.
right? If you had someone take care of all of the day to day and you just managed it and you can look at it and if something wasn't right, you talk to them and they respond back. How much time would that free up for both of you?
A ton.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then why haven't you done it?
Exactly.
So yeah, that's the point I'm getting at.
Mhm.
And it's really hard. Hiring people is really hard. Hire slow, fire fast. Another thing I could, if I can pass on anything to you,
Yeah.
I've learned and fucked up a lot of times. It's that.
Yeah.
The other thing I was saying, it might come back to me. You're on a roll. Instead, similar to what you said, instead of working in the business, work on the business, and that's something that I see you shifting towards.
Yep.
But I love watching the like chaotic ups and downs,
Yeah.
and, like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
lack of organization, and which isn't you, and I know you have a million things going on.
Yeah.
But if you can like have that 30,000 foot view on your business, it's a lot easier to see those things.
Yeah. I think it's just because like for anybody that is like in your 20s, all your friends should be older than you. Like in terms of like they like at least this is just as what has worked for me, but like getting to spend time with you in Colorado and seeing like it was one of the first times where I realized what business could do for you really in life. And like you like all these different people that I'm friends with and I talk to, they all kind of mention the same thing. It's like you're building a business. You want it to do great things. You want to be great in what you do, but like you're building a business for a reason. And it was what you just talked about earlier, where it's like you didn't build a job for yourself. And so it's just this constant evolution of shedding beliefs and shedding preconceived notions and shedding parts of yourself. Like you have to go through so much personal uncomfortability that like and like the factor of like, oh, you got to take care of yourself. Like nobody fucking talks about that shit. Like true success. Everybody is so much more tactical. Being somebody that, constitutes myself as a strategist, like I'm tactical. Like I think about tactics in terms of growing brands and doing all this shit. Business in itself is people, leadership, it's taking care of yourself, it's your own self-worth. And like it sounds so cliche because it's been said so many times, but everybody is still worried about the fucking tactics. It's like, no, if you have great people, guess what? You're gonna have a great business.
Well, I think it's holding the standard on the tactics and the
Yep.
systems, which is huge. I mean, if you go in blind, you're not going to do well.
Obviously,
You might have
yeah.
some dumb luck, but
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, if you can understand people and solve a fucking problem and then just lead with your heart and do so, you're going to be okay.
You're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna figure it out. I wanted to talk about relationships because I think that's an interesting topic that we haven't delved into before. What is the relationship with Lacey now in your life? Noticing that my girlfriend's been with me from the start of the business when I was dead broke and like I was very immature. Like we've had to actually, I think it's a hard part in our relationship. The fact that I was 19 when I met her. Like I was a fucking jackass. Like I didn't know shit about anything in my life. And I was like, she had to deal with a lot of that. But you and Lacey, just from an outsider's perspective, looks like you guys have come to each other in a very mature state of your life. And I'm just interested in how that's changed yourself personally over the last, year.
Sure. I don't know if it's changed myself personally over the last year. I've just been able to be more of myself over the last year, right? The both of us were in 10-year relationships before we met one another, and they didn't end well.
Mhm.
So,
Well, obviously, yeah.
so that was something that we came in swinging with. I just laid it all out there, and I was like, this is where I'm at. Like, I met her, a month after I separated from my ex, and she didn't run away. She just kept the conversation going, and that was a home run for me. She had nothing after she and her ex, divorced, and she started this very successful financial business, Fearless Financial. And the idea is that, we connected that we wanted to not live this normal life, and we understood one another and left it out there in the beginning. And what we did, and we spoke about it on our podcast, which is an Uncomfortable Truth. We spoke about how we made our pillars of love. And I shit you not, like, this is what we created, because we're fucking corny as hell and I love it.